Yaegel Welch, I play Tom Robinson.
I'm Melanie Moore, and I play Scout Finch.
I'm Richard Thomas, and I play Atticus Finch.
I'm Jacqueline Williams, and I play Calpurnia.
We have our own particular way of perceiving the audience as the show is going on, and mostly it's like, you know, you guys are grading us and we're grading you.
Okay.
Also,
Yes.
you know, we talk about you just as much as you talk about us at the intermission. One thing that I do notice is that there's a certain kind of tone from the audience before the first act curtain goes up. You can hear it. You know, you walk out there and you hear, the first thing you do is listen to what it sounds like on the other side of the curtain. And then, before the second act curtain goes up, it's an entirely different level of people are talking. It's louder. It's more. You can feel that they are, as you say, you know, that they've stretched their legs. They're talking about what they've just seen and heard. So they come back with a renewed and heightened energy, and that's very palpable, I think, right from the beginning of the second act.
I'd say also, like, it's interesting. I don't know that the audience knows exactly what they're about to experience when they come in. I think they think they're going to get nostalgia. Oh my God, it's our favorite Scout. And then within the first 5 minutes, you hear the N-word. And then you keep hearing it and getting baptized with it over and over again throughout this. I don't know, should I give that away? Anyway.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
It's in the history books.
Well, it doesn't unfold, you know, the way, you know, they expect it to unfold.
Yes,
They don't.
You know, I mean, you know, so.
It's they're getting the story. They're just getting such a strong look on a certain aspect of the story. And so by the time we get to Act 2, what I like about it, and particularly like the scene that I'm in primarily, you can hear there's this beautiful sound of silence.
Oh yeah.
Like people are listening like that intently, and like you said, they know what's. I mean, I'd say about 75% of these people in the audience know exactly how this unfolds, but yet they are at the edge of their seat as you express, and that's a pretty awesome feeling to know that there's a synergy between us on stage and the audience that sort of carries through, and like because they do a wonderful job of building up this likeness, you know, and family and community, and then all of a sudden manage to still hold the audience through. Now it becomes a family drama. You know,
and the first act is non-linear in how the story is told, and the second act is linear. It goes straight from one event to the next, whereas the first act, it jumps back and forth before the trial, during the trial, and it disorients people a little bit, I think, on purpose. Especially when you're coming to see something that everybody's coming to see something that they think they know. And there's a lot of people who just think that it's the movie. They think it's the movie. Some people talk about it like it was a movie, not a book. So the first thing you have to do is disorient the audience about what they've come in expecting it to be. You know, this is why they hired me, because I'm a lot shorter than Gregory Peck was, so and not as good looking. So immediately people go, no, that's not him. So you know, it's good. It changes. You know, we have little children played by adults. No. So is this before the trial or after the trial? No. So people's expectations are confounded right from the beginning, and I think that's a good thing.
I also think Richard has said this a lot, and we have talked about this. It's interesting with the different audiences that we've had, but our first act is very much, I think, a comedy in a lot of ways, with like very serious content, and our second act in a lot of ways is a tragedy. And so as much as we sort of build them up, then all of a sudden the rug is ripped out from under them, and the sense of comfort, like you were talking about, is sort of ripped out from under them, and they are left sort of with us holding them, saying, yeah, this is what happened, you know. And it's this sort of interesting juxtaposition of feeling so comfortable with these characters, and then all of a sudden feeling devastated for these characters that you learn to love. And you know, I've many a time I have been eating after the show or having a drink after the show, and I'm sitting next to people who don't realize that I was in the show because I look slightly different than when I'm wearing overalls, and it's like tiny, and they have said, you know, they've been silent, and I've heard just like, I thought he got off at the end. And then they're silent for longer, and then the next person will say like, yeah, I really remember this as a happy ending.
Right.
And I sort of like always try and like get to the other side of the bar, or like do something like, I'm like, oh God, but it's like, I think sometimes, like you said, people wrestle with this nostalgia and feeling like, oh, I loved that movie, so therefore it must have been a happy ending, and it is very much not. And I think that has been something that is like incredible to watch audiences sort of remember that lightness.
Which is one of the main reasons why we are out here.
Yes.
And we are taking this around the country. That selective memory, and because it's not a happy ending.
No.
And nor has there been much progress since 1934. And, because you have people walking around like that, that's why the story is still important, and why we are out here sharing it, reminding folks, hopefully stirring up positive change, at least some thinking, forward thinking in folks.
Yeah, I think that I agree, Jacqueline. I think that the film also, especially, which has almost an equal impact in the book in some ways, certainly in terms of generation. It's designed to make us feel good about ourselves, and because of how Atticus and the feeling and the idea of community is interrogated in the play, we feel good about the selves we want to be, but we see what the distance between our aspirations and who we really are, so that we shouldn't feel quite so comfortable about ourselves. There should be no sense of self-congratulation at the end of the play, even though we still should admire and feel good about people who try to do the right thing, obviously. But that doesn't tie everything up in a bow. I mean, he does in the third, really what is the third act, which is the denouement of the play, which is a restoration. Sort of, it's a classic form. The first act is comedy with serious bits, second act is tragedy with funny bits, and the third scene, the last, is restoration, where the world is restored, which is perfect dramaturgy, but also at the very end, but we're not done, and we have to still look forward and reconstitute what we think community means in order to make the right changes. So no one should go out of the theater feeling settled.
It's interesting because the idea that, we're talking about Jim Crow in 1934. It was never going to be a joyous situation for anybody, and particularly nowadays as we look back, because there are some people who think that was a better time, but it was only better for some. And the consequences of that better are still affecting us to this day. And I think what Aaron Sorkin has done a brilliant job of, and I think the reason why this story still connects with modern audiences is because we can see, the story allows us to see the little progress that may have been made, but it also allows us to see what hasn't happened. And the fact that this happened in 1934, granted, this is a fictional account of a black man accused of raping a white woman in 1934. However, I can tell you through research, there are thousands of these stories where it happened over and over and over again, and no justice was served.
Nobody got in the courtroom.
No one got in the courtroom. They were just killed. Vigilante justice is what was happening. And so Aaron's done a great job, because we can parallel immediately to, oh wow, dang, George Floyd, oh God, Tyree Nichols, oh God, we can go on and on, Eric Garner, Jalen Walker, these names that just can, Breonna Taylor, black people who are being killed unjustly with the law being involved in it. And it's kind of impossible for that to be a happy ending. It has to be what it is. But I do think because we can directly parallel these events, audiences immediately are connected to it. And I think it definitely brings in younger audiences too, who may not be as connected to this story. And so like that's the gift of the play. You get the nostalgia, but you also get the truth.
I think it's the mark of a classic too, that it can be, that it can take some rough handling, because classics move from generation to generation, and they need to be interrogated and re-examined. They do it with Shakespeare, productions of Shakespeare plays that are conceived of and executed in ways that really interrogate and bump up against the play. Because if a classic is tough enough and hard enough, it can withstand moving from generation to generation and reflecting, and this material absolutely does that, because it is our story, and like Aaron says, it's Aaron Sorkin says about this piece of material now, it gets pushback from the left and the right. Some people, people either don't want another white savior narrative, or they don't want a story that makes Jim Crow look bad.
Yeah. Well, and I think.
Would you like to say the pretty version?
Well, no, that's what he said. I mean, that's his quote, and I think it's great.
It's true.
And Yaegel, you have said, which I thought this was so beautifully put, our story at its core is a white family experiencing black trauma for the very first time. And I think that in the midst of the sort of racial reckoning that was 2020, when you couldn't look away from your phones, you couldn't look away from your screens, and you were experiencing, white people were experiencing, oh, I thought we have moved so far from this. And you weren't looking away from it. So many people, as you said, look at what we are experiencing as a white family experiencing black trauma for the first time in this town in 1934 and saying, wait, why does this look so similar to what we are experiencing now in 2020 and 2021 and so on? And so I think, like you said, and like you have both said, that is what makes it so painfully relevant today, is that people want to say, and that we've come so far, and instead they're sitting there and there's sort of a mirror held up to them with kind of like a glossy coating, except for you change a few small details, and that could have been taken from a newspaper article today.
It's funny because it's like you see these stories, and like white family, it's like, when white people actually do see the trauma, they protest. They protest and they get out there too. It's sometimes, I think, and this is the beauty of the story, it teaches us to empathize. It's like, if you take the time to listen to someone else's pain, they're not making it up. They're not lying. It's really happening. And if we just look out and we make ourselves more aware of the other person's journey, I think that's what this story is about. It's the ultimate empathy. How can we help now that we know this is happening? But I think what we're guilty of sometimes in this world, myself included, is blocking off certain people's pain just so we can function and work in our own lives in our own zones. And I think we miss out on helping each other, and that's how injustice keeps happening and happening and happening.
Well, theater, when it really works, I mean, not all theater, but that's good, but most of it really is an empathy machine. It's a machine for empathy, creating that space for an experience of empathy within a communal situation. It's one reason it's so important to have live theater, because it's something that happens in the room with people experiencing it together as a community in the room. With the exception of people who can't turn their cell phones off.
And I think just like Bart Scher, our incredible director, said at the very beginning of this, and I know he feels this way about all of his work, you don't have to love it. We think you will. You don't have to love it. You don't have to hate it. You will have feelings about it, and that is our goal. And we want you, after the play, to sit down and have a conversation with your family and your friends who came to see it and talk about it. Good art and great art should make you have conversations, and that's what we've all been saying, is we want to spark conversations about empathy, about community, about why it made you feel something. Whether you hated it, you won't, or whether you loved it, and have those conversations. And that's the goal of the whole show, is to spark conversations and try and enact change.
The idea of shutting...
Even if that conversation is just with oneself.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's important, even if people leave and they're having conversations with friends or family or co-workers or whatever, it's still important for them to have that with themselves and think about, go over, recall what they have done in their lives to make things better or worse.
Yeah.
What can they do moving forward to make things better? Very important.
Well, also, the idea of, and we're seeing this play out across the country, the idea of suppressing a story because it makes people feel bad is just a form of infantilization of people. Because only by feeling bad about things do we take the next step forward. You know, when we feel good about something, we want to stay right where we are.
Sure.
But when there's enough sand in the oyster to make the pearl, you know, that's how it happens. And so the idea that, you know, stories shouldn't be told because they make people feel bad is a very, it's pernicious, because we are all implicated in everything all the time with each other, whether we like to think so or not. And so it's a tonic, you know, it's good medicine, but it's fun too.
It is fun.